New information today about the sexual assault charges against a now former prosecutor. Good afternoon, I'm Cheryl McHenry. James Brown is off. This involves John Amos. Court papers accuse him of crimes dating back to 2013, but investigators did not announce charges until Friday. News Center 7's Mike Campbell is digging into the accusations against the high-profile attorney and how the case will be handled. He joins us live in front of the Montgomery County Courthouse. Mike?
Well, Cheryl, John Amos worked as an assistant prosecutor here at the Montgomery County Prosecutor's Office since 2000, and he's actually promoted to handling high-profile cases like murder cases since 2014. But this court document accuses him of 5 crimes.
John Amos worked in the Montgomery County Prosecutor's Office for 22 years, handling many high-profile cases like prosecutions of murder. He recently handled the Victor Santana case, the man eventually convicted of killing 2 teenagers that he found in his detached garage.
The real question before you is, does he, Victor Santana, get a pass for snuffing out the lives of 2 teenage boys?
But now Amos, who resigned his position Friday after charges against him were approved, is on the other side of the law. Amos is accused of 2 counts of rape, 1 count of sexual battery, and 2 counts of gross sexual imposition. I reached out to the specially appointed outside prosecutor about the timeline of the case. The indictment claims the crimes took place in April of 2013, but the Montgomery County Prosecutor's Office said they were not notified of a possible criminal investigation until June of 2020, and a police report wasn't completed until February of 2021. The official charges just came through Friday in July of 2022. A spokesperson for Matt Heck told us the conduct investigated happened outside of the office during non-work hours and was not related to any case or person in the prosecutor's office. Our office was not involved in any way in the investigation or review of the case. Mr. Amos was placed on leave pending the outcome of the grand jury. We are shocked and dismayed to learn that an indictment has been filed.
Now, the prosecutor's office seemed to indicate that they were actually surprised by charges being approved in this case. They did not have any additional comment when I reached back out to them today. Now, to avoid any appearance of conflict of interest, they did ask for an outside prosecutor to be brought in because they are not handling the investigation nor the prosecution moving forward. I reached out to the prosecutor in the Toledo area that's handling this case. She said she was not comfortable commenting on anything that's not in the indictment. John Amos is scheduled to make his first court appearance next week. Reporting live in downtown Dayton, Mike Campbell, News Center 7.